Well, hello there. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to talk about baking powder biscuits and why knowing how to make baking powder biscuit dough could change your life in the kitchen. 5 ingredients: milk, flour, salt, baking powder, and some butter or margarine. You choose. I like butter. You'll need some simple tools, very simple tools. Get yourself a liquid measuring cup from the cupboard. The liquid measuring cup has a spout which makes it easy to pour milk out of, and it's got the nice measurements on the side. Perfect for liquids. It should only be used for the liquids in your recipes. Then we have dry measuring cups. You'll need a 1 cup dry measuring cup. You'll need a half a teaspoon. You'll need to get a fork from the drawer, the kind you eat off of. A butter knife. This is awesome for leveling your flour and also for cleaning off your pastry blender. Notice a pastry blender is not something that you plug into the wall. Biggest misconception in my classes is kids go looking for the pastry blender and they're looking for the electric mixer. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is a pastry blender. You'll notice that it's just a wooden handle with a bunch of wires attached, 6 to be exact, and that's used for cutting in butter or margarine into your biscuit recipe. You'll also need a medium-sized mixing bowl, a rolling pin. You'll need a good quality baking sheet or baking pan, and some parchment paper. I always cover all my pans with parchment paper when we're on a time crunch because it makes cleanup a breeze. First ingredients to go into the bowl are always the dry ingredients. So you can see I have 2 cups of flour in there already, and I'm about to add some salt. Then I grab my handy dandy whisk, and I'm just gonna combine them by whisking together. Next, I'll add in the baking powder, 1 1/4 tablespoons. I'm gonna whisk that in. We want to combine it so everything is evenly distributed. And we know that baking powder, it's our leavening agent, which means to rise. Leavening simply means to make it rise. All 3 dry ingredients are in the bowl. We've got flour, salt, and baking powder already in the bowl. We just drop our butter into the bowl, 1 cup of butter, and it should be cold. So don't be taking this out ahead of time. Take it right out of the fridge and put it in your bowl. Then you take your handy dandy pastry blender and you basically just start pushing down, and you can see it starts to cut in. And that's why this is called cutting in. Now you can see that I've cut in my butter until it resembles coarse crumbs. Should be about pea size or smaller. So if you see that you have any really large chunks of butter that you can still see, then you just need to blend a little bit longer. Next step is to add milk. Now our butter adds tenderness and flavor, and our milk helps dissolve those dry ingredients. And it's also gonna add some tenderness and help it brown. So we keep measuring until we get to the 3/4 line, and then we get down at eye level. And it's pretty much bang on. So now we can dump it into our recipe and stir it with our handy dandy fork. So as you noticed, I poured the milk into my mixture of butter and flour, and I stirred it until it started to stick together and form a ball. Then I put my hands in and I kind of worked it until it all stuck together and made a ball just like this. Now what we have to do is something called kneading, K-N-E-A-D-I-N-G, and that just means to work the dough 10 to 12 times using the heel of our hand and folding the dough over. So you're going to push down with the heel of your hand, turn the dough again, push down. If you find that it's sticking, add a little bit more flour. We don't want it to stick to our counter terribly bad. So this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, turn it over, push it down with the heel of my hand, 8, 9, 10, and it's getting pretty sticky here, so I'm gonna add a little more flour. 10 we had, 11 and 12. We don't want to overwork our biscuit dough because then we get tough, hard hockey puck biscuits because we overdevelop the gluten. So we definitely want to stop at 12. Don't go anymore, or you will have tough biscuits. Okay, so we also need to lightly flour our rolling pin so that the dough doesn't stick. So we don't need to go overboard. We're just gonna take a little flour, and I just like to dust the rolling pin before I start to do my rolling. And shut it off, Reese. Now there's a special way that you wanna roll out your dough, and it's kind of like, I tell people to picture like them making a sunshine. You roll from the center out, and we're not pushing very hard. Center out, center out, center out in each direction. And we go center out, from the center out, from the center out, center out, center out, center out, until we have our dough rolled out to about 1/4 of an inch. Now, some people have their own ways of rolling out dough. Maybe they don't go from the center out, but I find that this is the best way to roll out your dough so that you get a really even rolling. And this is just one way that works really well. So you just keep rolling until you have about 1/4 of an inch. Now, 1/4 of an inch is not very thick because this stuff really likes to swell up as it cooks. Now, to make a simple biscuit, all you're going to need is a cup of any sort. It doesn't have to be plastic, it can be glass. And you don't want it to be too big because then your biscuits are huge. Unless you want really big biscuits, then that's up to you. But what I like to do is just dip a cup in some flour. You can dip yours right into your container if you have. Dip it in, and the reason we're dipping this in flour is so it doesn't stick. And then what you want to do is you want to cut your biscuits as close together as possible so that you don't have to re-roll your dough. Okay, and it pops out just like this, and we just put it right on the pan. Super simple. Do another one just to show you. And it's coming right out just like a beauty. So you can bake these up. When they come out of the oven, serve them with butter and jam or peanut butter or cheese whiz or whatever you like on your biscuits. Now, I already mentioned my favorite thing about biscuit dough is that it's so versatile. So you could either have a regular biscuit like this, or you can make some mini appetizer pizzas. All you have to do is take your thumb and your index fingers, and you're just going to pinch a little pizza crust up all the way around the edge. And I like to kind of push quite a bit so that I make my biscuit even thinner, because I kind of like my pizza dough crispier. And it also makes my little mini pizza a little bit bigger. Okay, once you have a crust made so that the sauce will not run out all over the pan, you can go ahead and you can add some tomato sauce. Smear it around. It's up to you how much you put in. About a teaspoon probably would be sufficient. Okay, then we're going to add some meat. It's your choice what you would like to put on your mini pizza. So I have some salami here. You can use pepperoni, whatever you like. Just make sure that you cut it up really small because it'll bake faster in the oven and give off a better flavor when it's small versus loading these suckers right up with giant chunks of meat. And then all you're going to do is add a little bit of mozzarella cheese to the top, shredded mozzarella cheese. And there you've got a little mini pizza. We just slide it onto our pan. I also like to add little the Ready Crisp bacon bits. It gives it a really nice flavor. My tip for you is to form your little mini appetizer pizzas right on your baking tray so that you don't risk spilling your toppings on the counter trying to transfer them, because that's a little bit awkward. So make yours right on the parchment paper on your baking sheet. Another thing that I like to make with this biscuit dough are cheese bombs. They are absolutely delicious. So all you need to do is take your biscuit dough after you're done rolling it out and just cut it into some nicely sized squares. I'm just taking the scraps where I cut my biscuits out, and all I'm going to do is make a few slices across here now this way so that I can show you how to make some cheese bombs, which are absolutely delicious. And I'd say that they are Italian flavored with the Italian seasoning and the butter that we brush on afterwards. So you can see I've cut this into a little rectangle, and I am going to take a cube of cheese I'm gonna place it in the middle of my rectangle of biscuit dough that we just made. I'm gonna fold it over itself and basically just pinch the seams. It's very important that we don't let the cheese escape. So we're going to do a really good job of pinching the seams together. And all you need to do, you can shape it a little bit more like a ball if you like, or a bomb. And then you just place this seam side down onto your baking sheet. And they bake the same way as the biscuits. Come out of the oven and you're gonna brush it with Parmesan cheese, melted butter, and Italian seasoning all mixed together in a bowl. And I'll show you that in a little bit. Now it's time to make a little snack or dessert. So we're just gonna make some cinnamon roll-up biscuits. Or some people like to call them Jiffy cinnamon rolls, I believe. And all you do is take some butter and you butter on top of the dough you rolled out. And I really like mine to be more buttery than less buttery. There's no real measurement for this. If you go too much, you'll end up probably burning the brown sugar and the butter when they melt all over the pan. So you don't want to go too crazy, but I do like mine quite buttery. And then basically, we just take some brown sugar, sprinkle it all over the top. Sprinkle, sprinkle. Now it wouldn't be a cinnamon roll up without cinnamon, so we're just gonna sprinkle some cinnamon all over the top. Don't use too much cinnamon. It might be a wise idea to take a teaspoon and then use your fingers to just pinch it on, because if you overdo the cinnamon, there's really no taking it off. Next step is to just roll this up tight like a sleeping bag that you have to fit back into the bag, the drawstring bag that it came with, which is always easier said than done. So that means you have to roll it really tight. So I just carefully work my way up and down the side and I try to roll this as tight as I can. You can see where the seam is. If you don't pinch this together, then it's gonna fall apart when we go to cut them with the serrated knife next. So we're just gonna pinch the edge to seal it. I'm just gonna push my edge in a little bit here, pinch here. And then I'm going to use my serrated knife to cut this roll up. Now, the reason I'm using a serrated knife is it's much easier to cut through. It won't squash your roll. The serrated knife is meant for cutting bread, and we never want to squash our bread, so we don't want to squash these when we're cutting them either, or they'll be a really weird, long, oval shape instead of being round like a cinnamon bun. Here's my serrated knife. The brand is Forever Sharp, and when I pull this out of the drawer, I always sing, "Forever sharp, forever sharp." Don't judge my singing skills. I've never had a lesson. I just like to do it, mostly in the shower. And you'll want to cut your cinnamon roll-ups about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch in thickness, and they will puff up lots in the oven as well. So I'm just gently kind of sawing back and forth, but I'm not pushing down with the knife. I'm actually, it's more like sawing. And you can see I'm just trying to be very gentle and not wreck my cinnamon rolls. Okay, so they'll end up looking something like this before we put them onto our baking sheet. Bake your biscuits at 425 for 10 to 12 minutes. We have about 7 minutes left, and we'll check these guys out. So there you have it. One biscuit dough recipe makes cinnamon roll-up biscuits or Jiffy cinnamon rolls, mini appetizer pizzas, or Parmesan Italian cheese bombs. But today, I actually used Johnny's garlic spread melted with butter and added Parmesan cheese to my mixture, because you can flavor it any way that you want. And basically you just melt that stuff all together and brush it over your cheese bombs, and they are absolutely delicious. Okay guys, dig in.